My sister was the golden child. Private school, spring break, trips to Europe, a brand new car the day she turned 18. I was the practical one, which is just a nicer way of saying invisible. Then, at my grandmother's 80th birthday dinner, I mentioned I'd just closed on a penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan, and my whole family's world tilted sideways. My father's fork hit the floor. My sister called me a liar in front of 12 people. And then my Aunt Paulette said one sentence that changed everything. If you've ever felt like the forgotten one in your own family, like your quiet effort never counted for anything next to someone else's spotlight, stay with me. This one's for you. My name is Delphine Marlowe. Everyone calls me Del. And for the first 26 years of my life, I was the daughter my parents forgot to notice. My older sister Brooke was the sun our entire family orbited. From the time she could talk, she got what she wanted. New bike, new phone, new wardrobe every season, and I got hand-me-downs and a pat on the head if I brought home good grades. Asking my parents for anything beyond the basics felt like committing a crime. My mother would sigh like I'd wounded her. My father would launch into a lecture about not everyone gets everything, Del. Brooke went to Crestwood Academy, a private school an hour outside Columbus, with a tuition bill that rivaled a state college degree. My parents never blinked at the cost. She needed the best, they said. The right friends, the right opportunities. Meanwhile, I rode a bus that broke down twice a month to Lincoln High, a building that still had chalkboards in some classrooms and textbooks older than me. Summers were the worst kind of reminder. Brooke went to Rome at 16, posted photos in front of the Colosseum like she'd personally built it. The next year it was Cancun. I spent my summers scraping burnt cheese off griddles at a diner on Route 40, coming home smelling like grease with $9.25 an hour to show for it. When I pointed out that I'd made honor roll every single semester, my mother said, "That's wonderful, sweetie," in the tone people use when they're already thinking about something else. Then came the car. Brooke's 18th birthday, a shining used but nice Honda Civic with an actual bow on it in our driveway. She screamed. She cried. My mother filmed the whole thing on her phone like it was a proposal video. 6 months later, on my 18th birthday, I got a card with $60 in it and an offer to share the ancient Toyota Corolla Brooke had already grown bored of after 3 weeks with her new car. College applications brought more of the same. Brooke applied only to big-name schools with a private admissions consultant polishing every essay. She landed at Northwestern, and my parents cried actual tears of joy at her graduation party. When I brought up Ohio State, my father suggested gently but firmly that community college might be more realistic for me. The message wasn't subtle. Whatever money existed in this family had one name attached to it, and it wasn't mine. So I enrolled at Sinclair Community College. My parents didn't come to orientation, they were busy helping Brooke move into her Chicago dorm. I moved myself in with 3 trash bags and 2 bus transfers. My roommate's mom brought a box of homemade brownies and helped her unpack string lights. My mother sent me a text, "Good luck today." I got a job answering phones at a small marketing agency downtown, taking night classes in between shifts. It paid barely above minimum wage, but my manager, a no-nonsense woman named Renata, noticed I picked things up fast. She started handing me small projects, client emails, simple ad copy, basic reports. She taught me things over lunch breaks that nobody in my family ever had. She believed in me before I believed in myself. While I was learning spreadsheets and client strategy on my lunch break, Brooke was living an entirely different life. Full tuition, a furnished off-campus apartment, a monthly allowance bigger than my paycheck, a semester in London, an unpaid internship at a fashion magazine that was really just an excuse to attend parties. Her Instagram was a highlight reel, brunches, weekend trips, a life engineered for an audience. Mine stayed mostly blank. There wasn't much to post from a receptionist's desk and a community college parking lot. I got my first promotion during my second year of school, assistant coordinator. The raise was small but enough to move into a studio apartment with bars on the windows and a suspicious stain on the carpet. It was mine. I furnished it from thrift stores and learned 40 different ways to cook rice and beans. I transferred to Ohio State after finishing my associate's degree, still working full-time. My manager kept giving me more responsibility and my salary kept climbing. 40-hour weeks, 15 credit hours a semester. Sleep became a rumor. But I stayed disciplined, and I kept saving not because I was naturally virtuous, but because saving was the only thing in my life nobody could take credit for or hand to me. It was mine. Brooke graduated from Northwestern with a communications degree and moved straight back home, announcing she needed time to find herself. My old bedroom, the one I'd left for my trash bag move-in day, got turned into what my mother called Brooke's recharge room, complete with a massage chair and a mini fridge stocked with her favorite kombucha. I graduated from Ohio State the same year at 24. I walked across that stage completely alone. My family was on a beach in Florida, celebrating Brooke's healing journey. I framed my diploma myself, and hung it in my studio apartment. A quiet victory nobody clapped for but me. My career kept moving. A major client came in for a pitch, and my manager put me in charge of the research. I spent 3 weeks buried in competitor analysis and market data, building a proposal from scratch. The client signed a 6-figure contract, and my manager told the partners it was my research that closed the deal. That's when the real promotions started. Project coordinator, then senior project coordinator. By 26, I was saving 30% of every paycheck and reading everything I could find about investing. Brooke, meanwhile, cycled through phases: a yoga certification, a wellness coaching business that lasted 3 months, an online sustainable clothing boutique that folded in 6 weeks. My parents funded every single one without a second thought. Family dinners were a monologue of Brooke's latest venture, while my father asked me without irony if I was still answering phones. At 27, I bought my first property, a modest 2-bedroom condo in a neighborhood outside Cincinnati that was just starting to turn around. I spent 6 months renovating it myself, watching YouTube tutorials at midnight, learning to lay tile and install fixtures with hands that grew calluses I was oddly proud of. Neighbors started asking me for contractor recommendations. The whole floor of the building slowly transformed. That same year, Brooke got engaged to a man named Grant Whitfield, whose family owned a chain of car dealerships across 3 counties. His ring probably cost more than my condo. Their engagement party had 200 guests at a country club. I got my invitation 2 weeks beforehand, an obvious afterthought. At the wedding, I was a bridesmaid whose dress had to be specially ordered because I apparently didn't fit the standard sample size the other girls used. Everything about that day was beautiful in the way a magazine spread is beautiful, technically perfect, emotionally hollow. 6 months after the wedding, a competing agency tried to poach me with a management position and a salary that made my hands shake a little when I read the offer. My own company countered with a promotion director of client strategy, matching the pay and adding profit-sharing bonuses. At 28, I was making more money than I ever imagined possible for someone who used to scrub diner grills for $9.25 an hour. Brooke's marriage started showing cracks almost immediately. Grant worked constant hours at the family business, and she was alone in a beautiful apartment she hadn't chosen. She started calling me more usually to vent. I kept the calls short. I wasn't ready to be her emotional support system when she'd barely acknowledged my existence for a decade. My condo sold for a 40% profit after 3 years. Combined with a decade of aggressive saving, I suddenly had almost $200,000 to work with. My real estate agent mentioned a pre-construction building going up in downtown Chicago right on the lake. I went to the open house out of curiosity. Then I saw the penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows facing Lake Michigan, 3 bedrooms each with its own bathroom, a chef's kitchen that looked like something from a design magazine. It was absurd, reckless. Everything in me said walk away. But something else, some quiet, stubborn part of me that had been saving and scraping and proving itself since I was 18, wanted it so badly it scared me. I brought in a financial advisor for a second walkthrough. He ran the numbers while I stood at the windows watching the lake stretch out below like a promise. His verdict: ambitious but achievable if I stayed disciplined. I spent 3 weeks running my own calculations twice. If I kept my current trajectory and lived modestly, the mortgage was doable. The bonuses would cover taxes and maintenance. I signed the purchase agreement with my hands trembling. I told absolutely no one. Not my coworkers, not my friends, and certainly not my family. It felt safer to keep this to myself, a secret triumph nobody could dismiss or take credit for. Brooke's marriage ended quietly about a year later. She moved back in with our parents, and the recharge room was resurrected within a week, complete with new throw pillows. She slid back into her old rhythms, sleeping until noon mall trips, complaining about Grant's mother. Then came my grandmother's 80th birthday. My mom planned an elaborate dinner at a fancy downtown restaurant called the Aldridge Room, white tablecloths, low lighting, the kind of place my family only ever took Brooke to celebrate something. The guest list included immediate family and my Aunt Paulette, my mother's older sister, who had always seen through the favoritism in our house and never pretended otherwise. My grandmother called me personally to make sure I'd come. I arrived early in a simple black dress I owned for work events. My grandmother hugged me the moment I sat down. She was the one person in my family who ever asked real questions about my life and actually listened to the answers. Dinner started the way it always did. My father talked about his golf handicap. My mother described her garden renovation in exhausting detail. Brooke complained about her divorce lawyer and Grant's mother's toxic energy. Nobody asked about my life until my grandmother steered the conversation my way. "What's new with you, sweetheart? You're always so quiet at these things." "Work's been busy," I said. "We just signed a few major clients." "Still, just answering phones?" my father asked, reaching for his wine. "She's director of client strategy now," my Aunt Paulette cut in before I could answer. "I looked up the company website last week. Very impressive." Brooke's face soured. She hated when attention drifted away from her problems for even a second. That's nice, she said flatly. Grant's father offered me a job at the dealership group, but I told him I needed time to heal. My mother squeezed her hand sympathetically. Then Brooke, seemingly out of nowhere, announced she was thinking about getting her own place in the city, somewhere with good light. Grant kept the apartment, so I need something that reflects my independence. That sounds wonderful, my mother said instantly. We can go looking together. Actually, Brooke continued, I was thinking downtown. Nothing crazy, but I deserve a fresh start. She described her dream apartment with the specificity of someone who'd already spent hours browsing listings, hardwood floors, a home office, a view. The budget she mentioned wouldn't cover a studio in that part of the city. Property downtown has gotten really expensive, I said quietly. I'm sure Mom and Dad will help with the down payment, Brooke said, waving a hand. They've always supported my dreams. My grandmother turned to me during a lull. Have you ever thought about investing in property? Del Real Estate can build real wealth. I actually sold a condo last year, I said. Made a solid profit. My father's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. You own property. Since when? About 4 years ago. I fixed it up and sold it when the neighborhood took off. Brooke's eyes narrowed. Where did you even get money for a down payment? Those places cost a fortune. I saved, I said simply. And I got a decent rate. Must have been tiny, Brooke said with a short laugh. Like a studio. 2 bedrooms, actually. Outside Cincinnati before it got developed. My Aunt Paulette smiled knowingly. That whole area exploded in value. Smart move. The table went quiet. I could feel my parents exchanging a glance clearly, wondering how they'd missed an entire chapter of my life. Brooke looked irritated that the spotlight had drifted somewhere she couldn't control. So what did you do with the profit? My grandmother asked, clearly enjoying herself. This was the moment. I'd been sitting on this secret for over a year, and suddenly it felt too heavy to keep carrying. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was just exhaustion from a lifetime of being background noise in my own family. I bought another property, I said carefully. Something bigger. Another condo, my mother asked, showing genuine interest in my life for maybe the first time that decade. Not exactly. I took a breath. A penthouse. Downtown Chicago, right on the lake. 3 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, about 3,000 square feet. The silence that followed felt like it could crack the chandelier overhead. My father's fork clattered against his plate. My mother's mouth opened and nothing came out. Brooke's expression cycled through confusion, disbelief, and then something that looked a lot like fury. You're lying, she said flatly. There's no way you could afford that. Construction finishes next month, I said, keeping my voice level. I've been making payments for 18 months. How much? My father demanded. The price was competitive for the building, I said. But yes, it was a lot. Brooke's voice climbed. This is insane. You work some office job. How could you afford a penthouse on the lake when I can't even get a decent apartment? I've been working since I was 18, I said quietly. Saving, investing, living below my means. It's not complicated. This isn't fair. Her palms hit the table, rattling the silverware. You got a penthouse and I'm stuck living at Mom and Dad's. I went to Northwestern. I deserve nice things. Brooke, please, my mother said, though her voice wavered. We're in public. I don't care. Brooke's face had gone red. She's always been jealous of me, and now she's making up stories for attention. There's no penthouse. She's lying. I'm not lying, I said. I have the closing documents in my email if you'd like to see them. My father's expression shifted from shock into something harder to read. You never said a word about any of this. Why keep it secret? Because this is exactly the reaction I knew I'd get, I said, gesturing at the chaos around the table. Nothing I do has ever mattered in this family, unless it somehow affected Brooke. That's not true, my mother said weakly. We love both of you the same. That's when my Aunt Paulette actually laughed out loud. It cut through the tension like a knife. Oh, please, Carol, she said to my mother. We've all watched you spoil this one. She nodded at Brooke for 30 years while treating Dell like she was invisible. Don't sit here and pretend you've been fair. That's my mother started. Aunt Paulette held up a hand. Your daughter just told you she bought a penthouse in downtown Chicago through her own hard work, and the first thing out of your mouths was asking why she kept it secret. Maybe ask yourselves why she felt like she had to. The words just sat there in the air. My father had gone pale. My mother looked stricken. Brooke was openly crying, now mascara running. She's always been jealous, Brooke sobbed. Always trying to compete with me. Compete. The word came out sharper than I meant it to. I've never once competed with you, Brooke. I've been living my own life while you collected trophies for just existing. Girls, please, my grandmother said softly. This is supposed to be a celebration. She ruined it, Brooke said, pointing at me. She announced this fake penthouse just to steal my moment. Your moment. Something in me that had been quiet for years finally spoke up. This is Grandma's birthday, not your personal stage, and the penthouse isn't fake. I close on it in 3 weeks. Prove it, Brooke demanded. Show us right now. I pulled up the closing documents on my phone and handed it to my grandmother first. She scanned the details, eyes widening slightly. Lakeview Residence, she read aloud. Building includes doorman service, fitness center, rooftop terrace. She glanced at the purchase price and let out a low whistle. Well, that's quite an accomplishment, sweetheart. She passed the phone to my aunt, who scrolled with growing approval. These are legitimate. Contracts executed. Down payment processed. This is real. The phone made its way around the table. My mother held it like it might go off. My father studied it with an expression I couldn't quite place. When it reached Brooke, she stared at it for a long moment before dropping it back on the table. I need air, she announced, standing so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. She rushed toward the exit and my mother immediately stood to follow. My father stayed seated, staring at nothing. The waiter approached carefully, asking if everything was all right. We're fine, my grandmother said firmly. Just family dynamics. Could we see the dessert menu? My mother came back to the table alone a few minutes later. She's in the parking lot. Says she needs space to process this betrayal. Betrayal, I repeated without much humor. Buying property with my own money is a betrayal now. You know how sensitive she is, my mother said. This is a hard time for her with the divorce. She's the one who brought up Chicago apartments, I pointed out. I was just answering Grandma's question. We ordered dessert in an uncomfortable silence. My parents didn't order anything too rattled to think about food. I need to understand something, my father finally said. How does someone on a mid-level salary afford a Chicago penthouse? Director-level salary, I corrected, plus bonuses. I've been investing aggressively since my first promotion. The condo sale gave me the down payment. You were always smart with money, my grandmother said warmly. Even as a kid, you saved your birthday cash instead of spending it. That's because she never had anything to spend it on, my mother said defensively. Of course she saved. She had nothing else to do with it. The truth in that sentence hung in the air heavier than she probably intended. My Aunt Paulette shook her head. Carol, do you hear yourself? You're actually admitting you gave her nothing, while giving Brooke everything. We did our best, my father said, though his voice had lost its conviction. We had limited resources. We couldn't send both girls to Crestwood. You could have sent neither, and saved for both their futures equally, my aunt replied. You made choices. Own them. Brooke came back as we were finishing dessert, eyes red and swollen makeup wrecked. She sat down without a word, staring at her empty plate. Feel better? My grandmother asked gently. No, Brooke said flatly. I feel like my whole life's been a lie. I thought I was the successful one. I thought I was special. You are special, my mother said quickly. Then why does it feel like she won? Brooke's voice cracked. She's buying penthouses while I'm getting divorced and living in my childhood bedroom. She actually won. This was never a competition, I said, tired now. You were so busy being the star you never noticed I wasn't trying to compete with you at all. Then why buy something so extravagant? Brooke demanded. Why not just get a normal apartment? Because I could afford it, and it's a great investment. Lakefront property doesn't lose value. My father rubbed his forehead. I'm trying to understand how you got so financially sophisticated without us knowing. I've been learning for years, I said. Books, market trends, a financial advisor. Nobody ever asked what I did with my free time. So none of us knew, my grandmother said quietly. We should have asked. Your parents should have paid attention. My mother's eyes filled with tears. We did our best. We didn't know you wanted any of this. I never wanted things bought for me, I said. I wanted you to notice I existed, to care about what I built the way you celebrated every little thing Brooke did. Nobody had an answer for that. What happens now? Brooke finally asked, her voice small. Do you just move into your fancy penthouse and forget about all of us? I haven't decided, I said honestly, but I'm done being invisible. I'm done watching my achievements get dismissed while you get celebrated for showing up. We never meant to make you feel that way, my father said, but it sounded hollow even to him. Intent doesn't erase impact, my aunt said firmly. You built this with 30 years of unequal treatment. Not meaning to cause harm doesn't mean harm wasn't done. My grandmother raised her water glass. I'd like to toast my granddaughter who worked hard, saved carefully, and built something remarkable without any help or fanfare. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. We clinked glasses awkwardly. Brooke didn't participate. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. My father just stared at the tablecloth like it held answers he didn't know how to ask for. Number. Part 5. What came after? I drove home that night in my own car toward my own apartment, bought with my own money. No borrowed sedan, no waiting for anyone's permission. The independence felt as solid as the documents on my phone. The penthouse closed a few weeks later. Moving day, I hired professionals because I could finally afford to, and I never wanted to carry another box up 3 flights of stairs again. The place exceeded even my own expectations. Morning light flooding through the windows, the lake stretching out to the horizon, more space than felt reasonable for one person who used to live behind bars on her studio windows. Brooke called 3 days after I moved in. "Mom says you're settled," she said. "Can I see it?" She showed up that Saturday in sunglasses, despite the overcast sky probably hiding evidence of crying. She walked through slowly, running her fingers along the marble counters, staring out at the water. "It's beautiful," she said finally. "I hate that it's beautiful." "Thanks, I think." "How did you do this? Go from a diner job to owning this?" "Hard work, smart investments, living cheap for a long time, nothing magical." She sat on my couch, still in her sunglasses. "I feel like I wasted my whole life. I thought having things handed to me meant I was successful, but you built something real while I just collected gifts." "You can still build something," I said. "You're young enough to start over." "I don't even know how. Mom and Dad never taught me anything about money. They just gave me things and expected gratitude." It was a quiet, devastating realization for both of us. The same pattern that had hurt me had damaged her too, just in a different shape. She'd been taught her worth came from what she was given, never from what she could build herself. "I can show you the basics," I offered. "Budgeting, saving, simple investing." She finally took off the sunglasses. Her eyes were red but dry. "Why would you help me? I've been awful to you our whole lives." "Because maybe it's time we both stopped playing the roles Mom and Dad handed us." We spent that whole afternoon talking honestly for the first time in years. I showed her my old budget spreadsheets, walked her through how I'd found and renovated my first condo. She asked smart questions I didn't know she had in her. My parents called less over the following weeks, and when they did, the conversations felt stiff, like they didn't know how to talk to this version of me. My father started asking about work with something that resembled genuine curiosity. My mother struggled more, still slipping back into treating me like I needed protecting. Thanksgiving arrived with tension nobody quite knew how to name. My mother hosted, and I brought a bottle of wine that cost more than the whole meal probably had. Brooke arrived with a homemade pie, something she'd never once done in her life. We sat around the table with careful, brittle politeness. Finally, my grandmother set down her fork. "Are we going to pretend everything's normal, or are we going to talk about the elephant in the room?" "What elephant?" my father asked, playing dumb. "The fact that your daughter bought a penthouse, and you still haven't properly celebrated her for it? The fact that you spent 30 years treating your girls unequally, and haven't actually apologized?" My mother's face crumbled. "We're trying to adjust. This is hard for us too." "It shouldn't be hard to be proud of your child," my aunt said quietly. "That should be the easiest thing in the world." "We are proud," my father said, though he was looking at his plate instead of at me. "We just don't understand how it happened so fast." "It didn't happen fast," I said. "It happened over 10 years you never bothered to ask about. You only noticed once the results got too big to ignore." Brooke cleared her throat. "I've actually been taking a financial literacy class. Dell's been helping me with budgeting. I'm saving money for the first time in my life." My mother brightened instantly. "That's wonderful, honey." "She's been working part-time at a bookstore," I added, "saving 60% of every paycheck." "A bookstore," my father frowned. "That's minimum wage." "It's honest work," Brooke said firmly. "And I'm learning money means more when you earn it yourself." The look on my parents' faces was almost funny. Brooke was rewriting her own script, and nobody had prepared them for that. Driving back to the penthouse that night, I thought about the whole road that got me here. The diner job, the trash bag, move-in day, the studio with the bad carpet, the years of saying no to happy hours so I could say yes to my future. My parents might never fully understand what they got wrong, but that stopped mattering the moment I stopped needing them to. The lights of my building glowed against the dark sky when I pulled in. My home, my name on the deed, my future built one decision at a time by someone nobody thought was even watching. Brooke might learn these lessons, or she might not. My parents might apologize properly one day, or they might keep making excuses. But I'd already won the only competition that ever actually mattered, the one against my own doubt, my own exhaustion, my own quiet belief that maybe I really wasn't enough. Turns out invisible can become unforgettable, overlooked can become outstanding, and the disappointing daughter can become the one who taught the whole family what it actually means to build something real. So tell me, have you ever quietly built something incredible while everyone around you was busy watching someone else? I'd love to hear your story in the comments.